As I mentioned, Joe Fortunato is joining us right now on WAKR. You've certainly seen and heard and maybe take in his film study work when we've talked to him with the Akron Summit County Public Library. And Joe is kind enough to join us this morning here on WAKR. And Joe, Warner Brothers came out, announced yesterday that all of their 2021 releases, I think 17 of them, will not only go to the theaters where a lot of people are not taking them in, but also on HBO Max. And that brings to mind, where are we, first of all, in the movie industry? Are we seeing the big change happen that maybe was going to happen 5-10 years down the road, but the pandemic has pushed it front and forward?
Well, first of all, good morning, Ray, and thanks for having me on. The HBO Max announcement was a pretty big game changer. I wish I had a crystal ball to say things were going to change eventually anyway or not, but it certainly has been accelerated by the pandemic. And the state of the theater-going movie industry is not very good right now. I'll give you some numbers here that are pretty shocking. Last year, in 2019, the total ticket sales for the movie industry was over $11 billion. And so far this year, it's barely over $2 billion. That's a pretty significant drop, and people just aren't going to the movies, even though some of them are open.
So, Joe, what does that do to not only the movie houses, and doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that they're hurting and some might not be reopening, but what about the guild, the actors, the actresses, the writers, and everything? What does it done to the industry in general?
Well, the industry in general has slowed down production, although the production is starting to ramp back up. There's a lot of protocols in place for safe production, and you're seeing it in television. I mean, we still have a television season that's starting up, and the same is true with film. The problem we have right now is a backlog of releases that have been delayed or postponed until next year. The James Bond film has been moved a couple of times, and now it's going to be next year. Disney and Marvel have a couple of big releases that are going to be put next year, Black Widow being one of them. The Warner Brothers is decided to release the Wonder Woman 1984 here coming up just in a few weeks, and they're going to be releasing it online at the same time, kind of as, that was sort of the first one out of the gate for this HBO Max announcement that they just recently made.
Joe Fortunato is with us. We're talking film study and the movie industry here on WAKR. Joe, let me ask you this, and going back to my question that I opened up against with HBO Max, is this something now that we can expect to see going forward, even once the pandemic is over with, that a lot of these movies will be going right to the opportunity to watch them on our screens in our houses? Or do the movie houses still have a chance?
Well, personally, from a sort of just a romantic standpoint, I hope they do have a chance, because there's nothing better than seeing a movie in a collective environment with a lot of people, especially a comedy where you can laugh, or a thriller where you can jump out of your seat, and that seems to be an irreplaceable thing to me. But maybe I'm just old school, and maybe I'm just a dinosaur in that regard. I will say this, that more and more, with this announcement of the streaming on HBO Max, that is going to affect obviously it's going to affect the box office of some people that aren't going to want to come back to the theater. More and more people have their own home theater. I know I have a home theater. So it's become, more and more desirable to be at home. Not unlike, in some ways going to a football game or something. The home experience has become so much better in some ways that threatens the live experience out in the public.
With us is Joe Fortunato. With us, we're doing film study and looking at the movie industry. And Joe, let me ask you this, and I've noticed this more and more on Amazon Prime. I've noticed it on Netflix, some streaming bases, that we're starting to see some more CGI series and CGI movies. And maybe this is pushed forward because of the pandemic, where you're seeing voice actors and the voices of actors we know on these series. And I imagine these have been pushed forward because not only the pandemic is here, but it's also probably less expensive to produce and put together. Are you seeing more of that in the industry, or was this just a coincidence?
I think that's a little bit more of a coincidence. I guess it depends on how you look at CGI. If you're talking about stuff like, Disney's The Mandalorian, it is a little bit that's still an expensive show to produce, but it's a little easier to have CGI backgrounds than to have sets. If you're talking about CGI when it comes to like animated fare, like Pixar movies,
yeah,
those have been popular for a while and they continue to be. So I don't know that we're seeing a trend in that direction. Although obviously when the technology is there, it's going to be used.
Joe Fortunato is with us. Joe, I want to bring in Gene Destro from our newsroom. I think Gene has a question for you. Gene, go right ahead for
Joe, my question is, I am hearing that these are going to be released on HBO, but you have to have a subscription to that. Is there any way that consumers are going to be able to see these movies without having to subscribe to HBO? I mean, won't you be able to get it on Amazon or just, buy a single ticket? Because I want to see the movies, but I don't want to pay like $15 a month to HBO.
Well, there's the catch, isn't it? And that's where the streaming wars that really started a few years ago with Netflix and Hulu have ramped up. I mean, there's Disney Plus and HBO Max, and a lot of people have Amazon Prime and so on and so forth. So we're getting to the point of saturation where people either don't want or can't afford a subscription to all of these things. So they're going to either have to pick and choose, and that's going to, I think that may be the saving grace with the theater is that, people want, aside from wanting the experience, they don't want to pay $15 a month or whatever it might be, or to get the streaming, some of the streaming movies that are released cost $20 or more for that one stream. If you're a single person and you don't want to spend that much, if you're a family, it's a great deal. If you're a single person, not so much.
Right. That's absolutely my point. It's like for Ray and his family, he pays $20. He's getting a deal. For me, that's no deal. I mean, because I could go to the theater and pay like $8.50.
I got a family of 5, for example, Joe, and we'd rented the Mulan for $20 or whatever it was, and we popped our own popcorn, had our lemonade. It was a deal for me.
But see, I'd never pay $20.
I'm in the same boat as a single person.
Yeah.
It's not so much a deal for me.
Joe, my final question to the industry itself here. What's the word out of Hollywood right now? Are actors and actresses working? Is the industry in some sort of flow? I know a few months back I talked to Corbin Burnson back in April and May, and he said, hey, no one's working right now. What's the industry like right now?
Back in April and May, I think that was largely true. I think that's changing now. As I said, Hollywood has protocols in place for safe production, or at least as safe as things can be. And we're seeing, like I said, television production. And the problem with movies is the backlog. And things that are now being postponed until the next year means that there's going to be a glut of content. So there's some things aren't being produced because there's just no room for them in the inn, so to speak, whether it be the theater or the streams.
All right, Joe. Well, listen, great stuff this morning. Hey, hopefully we can get back to some normal state in 2021 and get you back with your film studies here in the Summit County area with the Akron Summit County Public Library. Those have just been fantastic through the years with you doing the movies. I know when I took in the Jaws one, it was fascinating to me. So thanks for contributing to the show. I'll stay in contact, my friend. And again, thanks for accepting the invitation and coming on today.
I thank you, and I look forward to it anytime.
All right. Joe Fortunato with us again. Some film study on what Hollywood is like right now during this pandemic.